First reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin meets US envoy Steve Witkoff in Moscow just 2 days before President Donald Trump's deadline for Russia to halt its Ukraine offensive or face new sanctions. Amid a deepening rift over Gaza occupation plans, Israel's defense minister says the military chief must execute any government order, despite reports he opposes the move. A cloudburst in the northern Indian state of Himachal Pradesh triggers flash floods, stranding scores of Kailash Mansarovar pilgrims. The incident comes just a day after over 100 people went missing in a separate cloudburst in neighboring Uttarakhand. China faces its worst ever chikungunya outbreak, with over 7,000 cases reported in just weeks. The mosquito-borne disease has prompted aggressive public health measures as authorities scramble to contain the surge. And Japan marks the 80th anniversary of the US atomic bombing of Hiroshima, as aging survivors voice frustration over growing global support for nuclear deterrence. Hello and welcome. Our top focus today is on the growing rift between the United States and African nations. As relations sour with South Africa, President Trump is now targeting another major African player. His administration wants to review strategic ties with Kenya, a country seen as a traditional U.S. ally. The Trump administration is planning to review Kenya's recently granted major non-NATO ally status. It's a special U.S. designation reserved for strategic defense partners outside the NATO bloc. Kenya received the status in June last year, following President William Ruto's historic state visit to Washington. The move made Kenya the first sub-Saharan African nation to be designated a major non-NATO ally. But the landmark decision is now under threat. A powerful group of U.S. lawmakers is pushing for an amendment that calls for a full review of Kenya's status within 90 days. This is what it will review: Kenya foreign policy positions, and including relations with the U.S. rivals like China, Russia, and Iran. It will also probe Kenya's alleged links to Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group fighting in the army in the deadly civil war, as well as links with Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group based in Somalia. Now, the review will also look into possible abuse of U.S. intelligence support that may have been used to abduct, torture, and rendition civilians. The proposal comes from the Republican Senator Jim Risch, a key Trump ally and chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. If passed, it could mark a major shift in Washington's view of Kenya's strategic role and deal a blow to the deepening partnership between Nairobi and Washington. Now, at the heart of this review is Kenya's growing ties with U.S. rivals. Despite being a key U.S. partner, Kenya has maintained strong relations with China for over 2 decades. Ties are focused on infrastructure, trade, and development. China is Kenya's largest trading partner, as well as a bilateral creditor, financing flagship projects under the Belt and Road Initiative. Ties with Russia are more limited, but as per reports, Kenya has subtly shifted from vocal condemnation of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine to a more neutral stance. Now, as for Iran, relations are mostly trade-focused. Iran remains a major buyer of Kenyan tea, but there is little security or political depth. But the most controversial accusation centers around Kenya's alleged ties with the RSF, a group sanctioned by the US. The Rapid Support Forces are a paramilitary group fighting a brutal civil war in Sudan. Kenyan President William Ruto is seen as a close ally of the RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Now, Kenya even hosted RSF figures who signed a charter to form a parallel government in Sudan, a move that angered Khartoum, which claims Kenya is taking sides. Ruto has defended his position as a peace effort. The US amendment also references Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliate that has repeatedly attacked Kenya. Now, this claim is more puzzling. Kenya has long been a frontline partner in the war against Al-Shabaab. Its troops are deployed in Somalia under the African Union mission. Nairobi considers it a primary national security threat. But Kenya is not the only African nation under fire from Trump's administration. Ties with South Africa have already soured over its relations with Russia, Iran, and its stance against Israel. Is Kenya next on Trump's Africa hit list? Now, US President Donald Trump believes that he will make America great again. And in his apparent bid to protect American people from invasion, he is making it difficult for tourists and immigrants to enter the United States, especially for African nationals. Earlier this week, Washington announced a one-year pilot program to reduce visa overstays in the United States. How? By making tourists from countries with a higher visa overstay rate pay a bond of up to $15,000 to travel to the US. And now it has officially released the name of the countries who will be first to face this bond trouble. They are Malawi and Zambia. Both are African nations. And looking at Trump's pattern of hardening his stance on Africa amid his anti-immigration stance, this isn't surprising. The decision will take effect on the 20th of August, and the bond is subject to return if the applicant complies with all visa terms. The Trump administration calls this a common sense measure to deter visa overstays in the country, but it seems more like a punishment for tourists from these African nations. And to understand that, let's take a look at a few numbers. Malawi and Zambia are poor, landlocked nations in southern Africa, and only a handful of their citizens visiting the US each year. According to the US Visa Overstay Report for the fiscal year of 2023, over 1,600 people arrived from Malawi for business or pleasure, and of that total, nearly 240 overstayed their visas. Meanwhile, nearly 3,500 people arrived from Zambia during the same time, with just about 390 surpassing their visa limits. Other African nations on the list for higher visa overstay rates are Chad, Sudan, Djibouti, Eritrea, Liberia, and Togo. Trump's travel restrictions could hit them any time now. Travel to the US is already seen as a pricey prospect. And with these newly imposed visa bans, it will soon be a distant dream for travelers from poorer countries. Apart from the visa bond measure, Trump is ramping visa restrictions for travelers from African nations. In July, Trump announced nearly all non-immigrant and non-diplomatic visas issued to citizens of Cameroon, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Nigeria will now be single entry and valid for only 3 months. Now, Trump is making it borderline impossible for people from African nations, especially the poorer ones, to enter the US. And at the same time, Trump wants these African nations to act as a dumping ground where he can dispose of illegal immigrants that the US does not want to keep. Rwanda has recently confirmed that it will receive up to 250 deported migrants from the US. Earlier, South Sudan and Eswatini also struck similar deals to appease the US president. So to put it straight, Trump basically does not want African nationals to step into the US, but wants the same countries to take illegal migrants living in his country while wanting to access Africa's vast mineral wealth. If double standards ever required an alternate definition, it could just be Donald Trump. Now, the US is an important player in Africa, but not the only one. Another player that is ramping up efforts to tighten its grip over the continent is China, particularly in the Sahel. In the Junta-led Sahel states of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, Russia maintains a solid presence. The shared anti-West sentiment helped Moscow boost its economic and security ties in the region. And so far it has been successful in maintaining this camaraderie. However, the ongoing war with Ukraine is seeming to take a toll on Russia's weapons supply to its allies in the Sahel. And this serves as a perfect opportunity for China to step in and fill the weapons supply gap in the Sahel. Recently, Mali has reportedly received a batch of armored personnel carriers from China, and more such deliveries are apparently on the way. These deliveries were reportedly received toward the end of July. In September of 2024, Mali signed a contract with China's largest weapons manufacturer, Norinco, to provide unspecified military equipment, training, and a transfer of technology. The latest deliveries of armored vehicles is likely a part of that contract. China has also supplied equipment to Mali in the past to help its battle against militant groups. Another Sahel nation where China is expanding its military footprint is Burkina Faso. Now, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Burkina Faso's military junta took delivery of 116 infantry carriers and 6 assault vehicles from China in 2024 alone. This year, in January, Burkina Faso also received a large quantity of Chinese-made armored vehicles from Norinco. Now, experts suggest that Beijing's weapons supply to the Sahel is likely to keep growing. Analysts say that, like Russia, Chinese offers a large variety of weapons that are affordable and of reasonable quality, rapidly deliverable, and well-suited to the counterinsurgency needs of the Sahel states, without demanding reforms or human rights commitments. Experts also point to how China is pairing economic influence with arms exports to become a top supplier for West African nations. China is looking at strengthening military ties with the Sahel states of Mali and Niger, where Chinese firms have vast oil and mineral interests. Having severed ties with former colonial ruler France and the United States, the Sahel states are looking to diversify security partners, and not boosting ties with China would be a big miss for these junta-led states, which they clearly cannot afford at this point. And our last story is from Uganda, where a humanitarian crisis is unfolding fast. Uganda, Africa's largest refugee hosting nation, is now on the verge of sheltering 2 million refugees as conflicts across the region spill across its borders. Since the start of this year, an average of 600 refugees per day have entered Uganda. If this trend continues, the total will cross 2 million by the year end. Uganda already hosts 1.93 million refugees, making it the largest refugee hosting country in Africa and the third largest in the world. Over half of these refugees are children. Refugees have been arriving from Sudan, South Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, all reeling from war and instability. In Sudan, a bloody civil war between the army and the paramilitary RSF has killed tens of thousands and forcibly displaced over 14 million people since 2023. In the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the decades-long conflict intensified this year as Rwanda-backed M23 rebels captured key cities. The DRC is facing the world's worst displacement crisis. And in South Sudan, the youngest country on this planet, fresh violence has flared amid a fragile peace after a 5-year-long civil war. Civilians, traumatized by years of conflicts in these nations, are now fleeing again into Uganda.
We used to live in Khartoum, but we moved to Darfur because of the war. I'm with my daughters. My husband passed away. We have been here for 3 months. We have nothing, no money. The children are not in school, and they started getting sick. The situation here is really difficult.
Uganda's progressive refugee policy allows them to work, study, and access services. But that system is buckling. Funding shortfalls, including US aid cuts, have forced agencies to slash food rations. Refugees are now receiving just 1/3 of what they need for basic survival. The UN warns that without urgent funding, more children could die from malnutrition, more girls could face sexual violence, and thousands will be left without shelter or protection.
Needs are massive, and we're simply not able to meet them. Whether it's water, whether it's shelter, whether it's food, we're only 25% funded. And it's not just about UNHCR, it's about the World Food Programme, it's about the other UN agencies, it's about the government of Uganda and their generosity towards this population, offering safety, offering a home. But without funding, we're simply not able to help.
The situation is growing dire. Refugee children are dropping out of school, mental health services are vanishing, and youth suicide risks are rising.
They came without families. They have no money, as they say. They have no relatives with them. They are still very young.
Yes.
They are unlike me. I am an old man. I can do my things. But for them, they need to be guided by someone. Yes. So I pity them.
Yes.
It's sorrowful, but still I say God will help them. As God is helping you and helping all of us.
The UN urges the international actors to step up. Uganda has long been a beacon for refugees in Africa. But with aid dwindling and numbers surging, the future of millions now hangs in the balance. And that's it on the show for today. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.